Chad,
Mr. Massey,
my mate, my mate.
my
So
my sensei.
we are privileged to have Charlie Marchon on the podcast. Um, I was keen to get Chad on first for this new iteration of the podcast because, um, well, I know a lot about Charlie's story myself, and I know that it's a good one. I also know that oftentimes what we see of Chad is work Chad and professional Chad. And there's a lot more to Chad than meets the eye, um, in many, many ways. But I'm keen to uncover that today. I'm keen to get past the surface and get past what you all see on socials and what have you. And of course, a lot of that is true to Chad. That is part of him, the fun and and the performer and everything else. That's part of his talent. But I know there's deeper talents and there's deeper thoughts and deeper values and things that run through Chad that I've been privileged um, to relate with, work with, and get to know over the last few years. So that's the aim. That's my aim today, mate, is to have a proper coaching conversation like the coaching conversations we have when nobody's watching. Um, so I guess with to add some context to it, let's get a bit about the start of your story. And I don't want it to be like a diary in any way. I'd rather ask the question around what happened before all this happened. Who were you? Who was Chad before you got into coaching?
I think I was probably we spoke about this a little bit on the podcast I did with Ollie. Probably just kind of floating through life a little bit. No real, no like clear direction with what I wanted to do. I guess personally, whether this is big-headed or not, I've always thought that I would be fine, kind of whatever I kind of lay my hand to. Just have a bit of an annoying knack to be able to pick things up and kind of run with them. Which is it's probably to my detriment as well because I might have found myself doing something that I didn't necessarily want to be doing, but because I could do it to a good standard, I'd end up just kind of carrying on with that and probably kind of found myself doing that here and there, um, which would have, I guess, stunted my progression in life if this hadn't come about. But this is
So
like, I guess, coaching, drawing it back to coaching, it's not necessarily what I wanted to do. It's not something that was at the forefront of my mind. Wasn't like, oh, I want to finish uni and go into coaching. It kind of just happened, but it just happened also with my thought process of seeing the success that Ollie was having.
mm, okay, so that was a definite influence.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, obviously being a big brother, but then I spent those, I guess, 3 to 4 years through university, at the end of university, training alongside him, was very in with his clients and stuff like that at the time because I'd go to the gym and they'd be there throughout the days. So there was already kind of that relationship building between his clients, myself, and I got an insight, like a fly on the wall insight into what that entailed. But then I was also at home when he was coming home at 10, 11 o'clock at night, getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning, and saw that side of it as well. And then there's potentially the cash in hand financial side of it, which as a 20 to 23-year-old, you're like, oh, that's a little bit of money there. That looks quite good.
Was that the first draw?
It's definitely a part of it. Like for me, like freedom is what I strive for, and that's I guess finances become part of it because it allows you to be more free. But then a big part of it is time. Now, being a PT one-to-one allows you to kind of manage your time a little bit better than kind of where I'm at now or where I have been for the past 10 years. So that was definitely a draw coming into it. Being able to kind of take holiday when you want, but then the negative to that is you're not getting paid whilst you're on holiday. So it was
Mm.
a that was also a bit of a I guess a shock to the system when I'd go away for 10 days in the early days and be like, oh shit, I've not actually earned any money there.
I've run out of the cash that was in my wallet.
Yeah, which probably then, I mean, we might come on to this, but then those early days, I would work every hour under the sun whilst I was able to, so that, if there was 10 days where I wasn't working and earning, I'd made enough to kind of tie me over.
What on from there then? Was there a definitive point where it's like, okay, okay, this is a bit of me. This feels like this feels like my thing. Was there a point of that, or was it more of like an organic growth into it over time?
I don't think there was any definitive point because I think if you spoke to Ollie throughout those first couple of years, he was probably a little bit on edge. Like, when's Charlie going to sack this off? And
Ollie was on edge.
not, he's never not on edge, eh? He was probably, and he would probably say this openly, like, I don't know when Charlie's going to call this and go and do something else.
Mm.
I think it was definitely like a gradual progression, and the fulfillment for me, what like all of those things that I've spoken about, time, freedom, financial, like that was isn't the stuff that actually kept me in the role or kept me in the industry. Um, and it's not necessarily either like seeing someone progress, that cliche, like
Mm.
being there for someone, being on their journey. That wasn't either anything for me either. It was the feeling I got being on the gym floor, interacting with people, and kind of making it a challenge of mine to make them enjoy themselves.
Des-
People.
describe that to me in your eyes.
I think people in general walk into a gym for the first time and they're very within themselves. And for me, it was like making them comfortable in that space. But then also, I was thrown into this very much in the deep end. No coaching experience, no degree in sports science like the other two, Ollie and Alex at the time. No master's degree. I just loved training, wanted to look good, I was competitive, so I wanted to be fit. And then that competitive side of me came into this part where it's like, okay, when someone walks through this gym, I want them to look at me as the person they want to be training with because they have fun with me. They know that they can progress, and I know enough to be able to like stand there and kick it against the other two.
Nice. Now, obviously, that's progressed over time, and as you alluded to right at the start, and I've said this all the time, and I say it to anybody who's listening when it comes to you. You're the most talented, I think, in our group, just generally. And we don't gas each other up too much. So I know it's a bit uncomfortable to hear me say that, but I think you are, and I think you are on many different levels. And the fact that you can turn your hand professionally to whatever is put in front of you, it carries over as well to the physical. Whatever you practice, it just comes very natural to you. But what I see in you the thread that runs through the whole thing is a very natural ability to just be able to relate to the person that's in front of you. Would that be fair?
Yeah, I think so. I think that it's come natural to me. I don't think it necessarily was in
Oh,
my life.
really? Really?
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I think part of it was like as a child, I was actually quite a reserved, very, very shy person.
Okay.
I think this was like an uncomfortable situation where it was like this was I think I relate it back to kind of just problem solving in general. Like this was a problem that I had. And it was like trying to solve that and part of that. And I think Alex was actually a very big influence on this is you see the way that he interacts with people when they walk through the gym floor. He's like arms open, smile on his face, would give a stranger off the street a cuddle as they walk into the gym.
Mm.
So kind of taking little bits of that and then kind of, I guess, adding my twist to it. But then I think I found fulfillment in what you're saying, being able to try and relate to someone, make them feel comfortable. And essentially that kind of comes back to we were trying to build a business. So if you're trying to do it where you're, not smiling at someone as they walk through the door, then you're fighting a losing battle.
I love that you brought the gaffer into that at that point because it's obvious now that you say it, but actually, and I'll be honest, and I'll apologize to him when I see him, but I've never really thought about that beyond. beyond my experience with him. But now that you say it, obviously he's one of the most welcoming and most kind people that you'll literally ever meet. Um, this that goes back to the story of when I first met you guys properly, when I came to the gym to spend some time together when we were figuring out how we would work together. And it was a little bit like walking into a pub, as in like a friendly local. And I got welcomed in by the gaffer who was the landlord, and then everybody sort of came around, and the chat just flowed very naturally. But there are many gyms up and down the country, as we know, that are not like that. And in fact, I wouldn't say many. I would say most gyms aren't like that. And I know there'll be people listening saying, my gym's really friendly and what have you. You know what I mean? There's also a lot of fitness professionals that are definitely not like that. And so I actually, I actually think that piece in and of itself is part of what makes Marchon what it is. Which is interesting that that was there right at the start, but that was from Al, but that was something that you actually picked up from him, and that's really cool.
Yeah, I think I'm just like thinking about it on the spot as well. Like the three of us all worked in some form of hospitality, like
Mm,
the age of 16 to, whatever we were doing. And a lot of the times we were actually working alongside each other. So in catering companies, myself and Ollie worked together. Alex's dad was like a head butler in London, and we went in, myself and Alex went and did some work with him wherever he went, kind of in different roles. So it was that being like in those interpersonal skills were built from a very young age. I guess they just kind of came out in us a little bit more as we started to progress through the business.
what were the conversations like at the start when it started becoming real with you three? Because I know I've mentioned there it wasn't necessarily your intention. Ollie was already doing it. The gaffer was already doing it in his way. He was in sport at the time, am I right?
Yes, yeah.
Um, so what were those chats that and what did they look like? Were they in the gym? Were they in the pub? Were they out and about? What were they like?
I mean, they were very sporadic. So I remember sometimes, like, I remember Ollie telling me that Alex was on board on a train journey up to London. Um, but they were very informal, like, yeah, like in training sessions, not necessarily the pub, because you probably wouldn't find Ollie in a pub.
Yeah, fair.
Um, but, Alex had been helping Ollie out when he was going away playing rugby with his clients anyway. Um, for me, I think Ollie thought it was like a helping hand to get me to do something. As I said, I was kind of just floating through a little bit. And then, the three of us were very close, and we have been for a long, long time prior to that. So it made sense. And then I guess, like projecting out into the future, I don't necessarily think we had fully envisioned what this could be. I think early ideas were like, we'll start this gym, and then we might start a gym in St Albans, and one of us can go and run that, and then we might have one in Berkhamsted, and one of us can run that, and then we'd have three sites that we're all heading up, and kind of that would be the goal. Um, and then things just kind of started adding to it as we went along.
Yeah, it's really cool, and I think for those listening, I think it'll be particularly insightful that it's the best laid plans piece, right? You can have some sort of a vision, but the most important thing, and again, this has been super clear and obvious to me in working with you guys, is just do the thing. Just take a step forward and do something, and then the rest tends to sort of follow suit. It's also really cool to me that those conversations that you had at the start were very informal and a little, like you say, a little bit sporadic, and not much has changed, eh? Because that's how they roll now, and of course that suits me down to the ground. Me being somewhat creative and sort of, I love the way that works. But it's nice to see that that's been retained and really is the central thread to how the whole thing operates. And some would look in and go, how on earth can that actually operate to that level like that? But it just does because I think the right people are in place to continue that forward. Would you say? Of
Yeah, I think it's a case of, and there's been times where it's been to our detriment, right? Things haven't
course.
worked out. But
Yeah.
I think for the most part, 100% of the people that are now within the business are all on the same page. So a lot of these things can be pushed through with conversations rather than kind of any formal structures. Um, Definitely going through a little bit of a transition period now where we're trying to build these structures so that we can
Mm,
unlock kind of greater scale at a faster pace,
mm.
which is, it's a welcomed change, but it's definitely a change to how we've been operating.
Yeah, yeah.
That's been a bit of
Um,
a process as well, because that's from where we were, three boys just winging it. Well, Ollie and then two other lads, maybe Ollie and Al, and then me just winging it. Um, to now kind of 40 odd people within the company.
yeah,
It
it can't be
requires
winged. It can't be winged.
exactly, it requires structure.
There are elements that can happen, as I always say in my mind, on the shop floor that can be winged. So, like what I'm doing in the day, I can operate like that in my little silo. But then when it comes to the bigger beast, it needs to plug in somewhere. So we get that. Interesting though. Um, so last week, I don't know when this will go out, but last week was the Rivington run, the represent the 24/7 challenge. Just very quickly, that was every hour for 12 hours, 5K run as a team of five, which you got 5 points per run. Was that right for each person? And then in the remaining time, as far as you could, distance ski, and you get five. You get a point for every 250. Was that right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, anyway, that was the event. And Genzo messaged me and said, I'm gonna head up. Do you want to come and hang out? And I was like, I've got a lot to do. And then I thought, no, let's go and support everybody and be there. It was round the corner from me, and I should make an effort. Actually, it turned out to be one of the most productive days I've had it in a little while because in a similar vein, then the conversations that we were all having. I mean, I didn't have any productive conversations with you, but specifically with Liam, like I got to catch up with Liam Holmes in that setting, and it's just those off the cuff conversations that are welcomed within our world and in our bubble that spark a lot of um spark a lot of thought, spark a lot of ideas, and then the action follows off the back of that. So that was just an example for me how something that wasn't necessarily planned or orchestrated or particularly structured, it wasn't structured at all, actually spat out the other side a load of cool stuff.
Mm.
So on Friday after that had happened, I was quickly sort of catching up with my notes and getting down what we thought. So I think it still happens. It's just the fact that that's now got to be plugged into to what is a bigger and a bigger growing beast.
Yeah.
Um, to that then, just as my mind's there, obviously a lot's changed from what we were first talking about and now. Um, this might be a question that's difficult to answer, but what's been the most challenging period for you in that, or the most challenging thing for you?
I guess I mean there's I guess it's kind of multifaceted because there's relationships that get strained between best friends and brothers and things like that,
Mm.
and that's very much a family business. So there's that side of things, and then there's, I guess, the more operational side of things with it, like within the business and the role. I think for me is the naturally I'm a jovial, happy-go-lucky, laissez-faire kind of person. Um, and I think, in the role I have now, I can't be like that all the time. So I think if I change too much, then it would be, too big a change. But it's just trying to manage that whilst also implementing more of the structure, the systems, the processes that aren't necessarily my strengths. So it's a challenge for me to kind of move towards that side. But it's like I said, I enjoy problem solving. So it's something that, I just get into.
Is it
Um,
is it your own decision that makes you think I'm not going to act like that, like I would do normally, like I shouldn't do right now? Or is it more like the amount of work and the nature of the work that you've got to do requires you to be a different way?
It's a little bit of both, but I think more it's from a management perspective with other people. So now in a position where I'm managing a select group of people, maybe five or six people, and going from a like the fun one to be around to being I guess managing, relationships or workflows and things like that is very, very different. And that switch up to some people might feel like, oh, Chad's being a bit of a swear word. I don't know if we're swearing on this podcast or not.
Go for it.
Um, I won't drop a C-bomb, but Chad's being one of those. Um, which can then like it can be uncomfortable for them. I could then feel uncomfortable because like in my head I might be like, oh, they think I'm a certain way because I'm trying to push this through in this way rather than how Charlie usually is. So that's just something that is on me to manage and I guess articulate to them at certain points where it's like, okay, this is something that needs to get done in this way. I'm not being a C word. It needs to get done.
Is that new? Is that a new challenge?
It's probably been a constant for since we started employing people, and just like anything, it's been a gradual. Um, I think at the time, people were kind of with us on the journey, and now there's new people into the business, so it's a little bit easier. Those relationships you can set from the start. But then I want people to feel like I am the fun one, that they can relax and they can enjoy their time when they're with me. Goes back to being on the gym floor. I want them to feel comfortable in my company. Um, because I want it to be a fun place to work. I don't want it to be like, oh shit, I've got to go to work at the office today.
So obviously that's a big challenge in itself. Is that leadership piece going from and again, I think the people listening will relate to this. The point in anybody's coaching business where you go beyond yourself. There's the challenge in, well, first of all, trusting somebody else to do the thing. Then there's the challenge of um, not trying to control them and so on and so forth, but still manage the outcome and all the rest of it. Um, you've then got the added challenge of a lot of people in and around you, people who you care about deeply.
Yeah.
So what's that? What I guess me knowing you, and again, this will be a behind the scenes thing that I know that happens with you, but you think a lot about and reflect a lot about um like you say, how you impact other people and all the rest of it. What have you learned from it? What from this process, this challenging leading process?
What have I learned from it? I've learned that every single person is completely different in terms of how they show up, how they approach things, how they execute things, how they need to be managed on certain tasks. Like going into this, very naively, it's like, oh, everyone thinks how I do. Everyone
Mm,
can, be given this task and go away and execute on it. Um, But a lot of people need not necessarily hand holding, but they need more frequent checkups, more hand holding through certain parts of a project, more meetings, more pats on the backs. I'm not necessarily someone who needs a pat on the back, but some people do. So then it's like, oh shit, I need to go and tell that person they're doing a good job. Or someone might listen to this and be like, he's never told me they've done a good job. You get what I mean? Like for me, it was a big not a wake up call, but it was a big learning curve to know that, and it's the same with people on the gym floor. Everyone learns differently. Everyone reacts differently to different coaching cues. There's no one size fits all to coaching or kind of managing people in business. Um, and I don't think I was naive enough to think that everyone would be the same. But the variance between people is so much greater than what I previously thought. And that's like even people that have been in this industry for 10, 15 years or been in certain roles for 10, 15 years, they do things very differently.
mm,
And it's also a learning process for me. Adit, who's a COO who's just come into the business, is from a very corporate background, and it's a complete change in how I show up to work, to conform, I guess, to his ways of working. Um, but I think looking back, for me, everything has been new throughout this. I think, let's use someone that's in marketing. They might leave from one role and go to a marketing at another place. It's not necessarily new, it's still marketing. Whereas for me, and I guess the career progression, everything's been new all the way along.
mm.
So it's been challenging and a learning curve throughout. but it's I guess something that I thrive in, but also it's like it's what I want to be doing.
And not only let me just add to that, not only new, but you progress or you find yourself in a role where you're one of one to start with. So then I I imagine you that there's a point at each step where you look around and you're like, who's going to tell me how to do this? Right? Which is which is hard. The so this is a cool line where this will go. Um, that then leads into your innate curiosity. And I guess then the dots start connecting now around why you can turn your hand to things. I think it's because you have an innate curiosity around the way things work, and you speak to that when you talk about problem solving, right? And so all of our conversations have been when we when we're working conversations, all of our working coaching conversations have been you coming to me with absolutely zero ego, saying, "I'd like to know more about this." And that's something that would you do it to me? Is that something that you do naturally to everybody?
Yeah, I think I'm very although some people might think that there is an ego there, but I'm very aware of my strengths and weaknesses. And when more weaknesses appear for me, I'm very aware of them. So it's the only way I'm ever going to get better is either I make the time to go and research or do the work, or reach out to people that have been there, done it, or have the knowledge. Um, and that started on the gym floor when it was like, oh shit, this person's a poor example, but it's like this person's knees caving in. To me at the start, I was like, oh, that looks fine, but then it's like, oh, Alex is like, oh, that that might not be happening. So that shouldn't be happening. This might be what's going wrong. Go and explore this. It's then cool, go and do that. So next time, I guess it's like not wanting to feel inadequate, and there's, I guess, a little bit of imposter syndrome that comes along with that, which I think is a positive for many if you do have that, as long as it doesn't paralyze you. Um, and it's just looking out for the people that have been there, trodden the path, and are able to give you the knowledge to bring you up. And I think going back to the curiosity thing and the inadequate thing is it's not necessarily to try and get to a point where I am the source of the knowledge. It's just being able to sit in a conversation so that I can understand and be part of that conversation, without feeling like I'm just being a passenger there, and then be able to impart some knowledge in that through my like the way that I might relate to it.
Yeah. Again, if you're listening to this, you might have just picked up on Chad's requirement to justify that, which shows me the total lack of ego. Like, there's no need to justify that. It's fine to want to know something, and I think that's I think that's natural to the coach. So yeah, I don't think anybody would suggest that you had an agenda or some sort of a power outcome by gathering these things. It's just to be more useful, I think, is the thing. Um,
I mean,
yeah, very cool.
I guess the ego side of it might come in as like, let's use you as an example. When you came into the business, I was like, who's this guy? On the surface, it's like, Mass, welcome, right? But then like it's like, who's this guy? Why does he know more than I do? I've been writing these programs for the past 6 years. Like, and then it's like through the conversations and the like uncovering everything that you have done, and it's like I can learn something from this person. The ego is telling me that like I want to be upskilled, not necessarily to your level, but it's like so that I can sit there and have a conversation with you about these things, and then be able to translate that into the programming that we're trying to provide. It all comes back to, I guess, bettering the services that we have.
Yeah, nice. Um, that leads naturally then into the question of around success. So as it stands now, what would you define as success for you in your role in your work?
That's a tough one. Um, I guess, I mean, lofty goals are, the targets that we've put on I don't know if this is more relating to the business or me personally. I think I would just, through this next phase of the business, is success would be being able to deliver on, all of the work that I've been putting towards the new relaunch of online training, and making sure that everything comes together. It's been a big project and will continue to be a big project and something that we lead with as a business. So it's making sure, and that the weight of that feels quite heavy on me. So being able to deliver on that, I guess, would be what my idea of success is. In terms of personally, like, I genuinely don't know. I don't know because everything's been so fast paced and we've never really taken the time to reflect and see how far we've come. It's not something that I necessarily think of. I think the blue sky thinking is, lying on a beach somewhere with a pina colada in my hand and being weighted on hand and foot, but that's not necessarily reality.
No, and you'd be fed up because you have nobody has to ask any questions. In
I'd probably be out of questions by then.
um, how, how has that changed? Then I won't fill in the gaps, but how has that changed your success? How you see success and what you deem as you doing a good job? Then is very much related right now to, um, I guess more of the process, right? And more of the production of the thing, whilst there are coaches now in your team that actually do the do. And I know you still write two of the most prominent programs. Um, but you're now somewhat removed from the end user, right? So then a big shift now from where it started, fair?
Yeah, yeah,
Um, where success for young Coach Chad would have been more about, like you said at the start, the experience that they had right there and then. Whereas now yours is more organizational, would you say?
yeah. I think back then, because of I guess the smaller number of people that were training on the app, it was a lot easier to get feedback, to understand who's on the program, have more of a relationship with those people. And I still have a relationship with those people, but now the pool of people has grown so much, but my relationships with those people are still the same group, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
Haven't grown because it's just harder for me to get that information. So I guess that side of it now is through numbers and metrics, where it's like, conversion rates, retention rates, those things. Um, so it's very, very different to the, I guess, the relationship side of things, that where it started to now being more data based.
yeah, yeah. Um, one of the big questions that always gets asked at various points through CPT, because there are a lot of people that because because the because March on training now is so far reaching, naturally people that are coming through our education system who want to be coaches are actually doing March on training. Um, so there are always we're obviously teaching the essence of coaching around one to one. So coaching the person that's in front of you. So questions then always come up around, but what about Marchon? And how can you teach this when you've got a 12-week block and da 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 and a testing week every 12 weeks and it's somewhat fixed and I'm there saying we need to be very agile. Um, so how do I'll let you speak on this. I have my thoughts, but I'll let you speak on it. How do you manage that? How do in your head you have an ideal around coaching when you coach on the floor, whether it be at White City or covering at HQ or whatever it might be? You naturally come to life as the coach for the person in front of you. But then how do you manage that coach in this arena where we're reaching 5,000 plus people now?
I guess like social media plays a big part here, where you're trying to show up as the coach in educational content, even within the app. But I think answering the question on kind of how being agile, it's like we're just trying to do our best to deliver this coaching service to people in a digital format. Now, is that right for everyone? No. Do I believe that everyone, like 90% of people could come onto the app, find an appropriate program and progress within that? Yes. Is it for someone that's just started in training? No. It's for a certain type of person that's motivated to train, probably has some experience within strength training, or is diligent enough to reach out to the coach. Like we're all accessible. No one's kind of said, don't reach out to me. And Paddy's got 1,500 people on his program and has to do a hell of a lot of communication with these people. Um, so there are still ways in which we can have that impact and be agile. The amount of times I've told people from the app to just message me directly so that I can make iterations of the program for them. Is that what we set out to do? No, but because we care, because we want people to be getting the most out of this training service. And that, if we think about retention, that's probably what's going to keep them training with us.
Absolutely. Well said. And that, I say it in my own way, but it's pretty much what I speak to when I respond to that. It's like, well, it is what it is, and March on Training is a product in its own right. It's an online training platform, so it's never intended to be a coaching platform. However, those that write the programs and those that do it are coaches. They're not just program designers, and so everything within them wants to connect and wants to do as much as they can. So not only do you get a very well designed 12 weeks of program um, every period, but you also get, like you say, the opportunity to connect and feel like you do connect. And so then, you know, the price reflects that. Ours is more expensive than a tin pot alternative that would never care less about reaching out to anybody. But then it's also considerably cheaper than any in-person offering,
Yeah.
if it's priced right. So it has its place in the market, and it does exactly what it says on the tin, and we don't profess for it to do any different. And I think what you've done in building and shaping this thing is create a service that excels and really that leads in that area of the fitness industry. Um, so yeah, that's just my little hat
Yeah.
nod to you.
In addition to that, I think we have tried to create a suite of programs that cater, and I don't mean to everyone, but it caters to everyone's training goals. So if you have a goal that sports specific, whether it's high rocks or CrossFit, like we have something for you. If it's just strength training in general, then we have something for you. If it's bodybuilding, we have something for you. And we've got running. We'll eventually have more endurance focused programs. So there should be something for everyone. And they should all be accessible to people, whether you are high training age or lower training age, maybe not just starting out in the gym. And then in terms of like the agility of those programs, we know that people don't have all the equipment. We know that people might be injured. So it's on us now to progress the platform and the service so that we can adjust programs to suit people. And that comes with smarter kind of tech, which will happen over the next year or so. So confident with that.
Yeah, yeah. And so again, just a little bit of insight. I mean, you explain it. What happens behind the scenes to bring that to life? Because we know about the coaches who write the programs and do the do, but then there's now a full team on the other side who facilitate that, right? So what does that look like in your day to day?
Yeah, I mean, when we first started, it was three of us writing programs on True Coach, as every kind of online coach probably starts out in functional fitness anyway. And now we've progressed to, owning our own training app, which has a full development team behind it. So we have two engineers, soon to have two designers, a chief product officer in Jackson. Um, so like the product is being managed and is continually worked on. It's not something that's ever going to be like the finished product. Because I mean, I'm not necessarily a tech person, but we know that tech moves fast, so we have to try and move with it. And we're not there yet in terms of it being the finished product. But I don't think there's many training apps that are as sophisticated as ours for what we're delivering.
No, I would agree. And again, I think you're being humble by saying we move with it. Um, Especially in this last year, the advances that I've seen in the app, I would say that you're moving it now. Um, I think what's being created out of March on training is now a front runner, and it's setting the tone for there are things coming out there that have never existed before. They're
Yeah.
new. And what's so cool to see is that the people that sit behind those advances and those ideas and those injections of expertise really on the tech front. Um, they love it just as much as you and I do. Like they fucking buzz off it.
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
Michael's in better shape than 90% of people on the team.
yeah, yeah.
Embarrassing.
It's really nice. I mean, in a lot of ways on that side of the things, I'm a bystander, but I get all the messages through Slack, and it's so cool to how excited they are genuinely about the thing that they've just created, and they've just done how many hours and how many lines of code to come up with this tweak that will probably go unnoticed to the consumer because it'll just make their life easier. And I think
Yeah.
that's just so cool. I think that's so cool. And I think that just speaks to then again back to the thread and the essence of this whole thing. We're trying to make people's lives better, and they do their part in facilitating that. Yeah, it's class. It's great to see. Little bit of a change of pace just before we bring this thing to a close. Um, Outside of all this, what fills your cup up? I know there'll be an immediate answer, a new one, but yeah,
Mm.
talk to me a little bit about life outside of this.
I've, I've lived in Harpenden my whole life, so like my family and my friends are pretty much here. Much to my wife's dismay, she'd love to up sticks and leave to a sunny country probably. But what fills my cup is the people around me, spending time with those people. And it's simple things. It's not like anything extravagant, but it could just be sitting around my mate's parents' house and having a barbecue, like little things like that. Holidays also fill my cup up. I love the sun, but seeing my friends, do well in everything they do, being able to, recently like coach my dad, is something
Mm.
that genuinely like fills me with fulfillment and gratitude. Um, it's actually made me a little bit emotional even just saying that. But yeah, I think just spending time with it's very cliche, but spending time with the people that matter most to me is something that I don't take for granted. And like on a Sunday night, if I've had like a very cup full weekend, I literally lie in bed awake, can't get to sleep because I catastrophize of like things going wrong, like with everything like that. And I'm like, what if that's the last time that I get to do this with that person? So those are the things that kind of fill my cup.
Good. A little insight. I won't pull on that thread, but there's an insight there into the depths of Chad's mind that we've had chats about before, but we'll leave that there.
Yeah, no one
Um,
needs to hear that.
Talk to me about Junior.
Oh, it's been to be fair, he's a very what I think he's a very neutral baby. I don't want to say he's bad because there's probably parents out there that have had babies that have been a proper handful. He sleeps, he eats, he's growing, he's got to have an operation, which is a little bit scary, but other than that, he's a delight. And I think, people not necessarily warn you, but they tell you how different your life does become. And I think you only really start to understand that once it's happened. There is this constant thought of there's now this other being that needs to be protected and fed and kept alive, which is like another weight on the shoulders. And like before, where I could just go home and just sit and relax, you don't have that time now. But it's a good thing. I think I'm someone that, like you said, sorry, like I said, desire freedom. This is a restriction on that freedom, so it's another learning curve.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Um, and I felt that too, being honest. When Aubrey first arrived, I felt that. I felt like it was a restriction, and I didn't feel it too much in a negative way. Like I was resentful of it. It was just that's just it felt like I thought, well, I can't do what I wanted to do. But not saying that this is how it will unfold for you, but how it unfolded for me was that this was just a different reality now.
Mm,
So actually, as it's unfolded and it's made me reflect on who I am and how I show up in the world and all the rest of it, I probably feel more free now than ever, despite the fact that I have less time for myself.
mm,
And I know that's a huge. If you would have asked me that 5 years ago, before the boys were born, I wouldn't have really grasped. I wouldn't have really understood that because I'm like, well, how does that work out? But I think it comes back more to purpose and um yeah, the love that's around you. Like you as you'll be experiencing now, like there's no love like it. And
mm.
so that's a new thing to get your head round in itself. So anyway, this isn't about me. This isn't about me.
I mean, it's a fair point. You mentioned purpose there. It's something that in those last couple of days prior to Nat giving birth, it was a conversation that we had, and I was like, I hope that there is this overwhelming sense of purpose which occurs post, you giving birth, and it's very much felt like that, and not like to be overwhelming, but it's like there is this sense of purpose now, and I look forward to the future, different milestones in his life where it's like, okay, first steps, first football game, those things where it's like you can feel like you're a part of that process.
Yeah, cool, mate. Um, just whilst we're out, just I've got a couple more things that are just going through my mind as you're talking. Um, whilst we're here outside the gym, how would you like people to receive you, to think about you, um, now and into the future? Now, you've alluded to it already, but just to sort of, I guess, add a little bit more to that.
Yeah, I mean, it's not necessarily a battle I have in my head like every day, but like if we think about the content that we want to try and produce as a business, and I guess me personally, I'm not the education guy. Do you know what I mean? I'm not going to sit in front of a camera and tell you like Paddy does so well. That
Mm,
that's that's not me. He can articulate himself in a much better way when it comes to things like that. So it's just finding, for me, it's like finding a balance between who I am as a person, this happy-go-lucky, jovial person, and then that side of things, and trying to merge them together. Which I think there's been periods where that's done very, very well, and then other periods where I've kind of slipped, I guess, if we're. But I guess how would I want people to think of me is literally that, like knows his shit, but can have a good time at the same time.
that's how I think of you. Um, so then, just go forward. Let's go. Let's go 10 years, so it's sort of within touch, within reach. Uh, it's all evolved. Um, it's gone how we would like it to go, and all the things that we can't see yet have happened, and we've experienced all the stuff and what have you. What would you like Marchon to be offering to the world? What would you like it to stand for at that point?
I'd like it to be known as just the number one training destination, whether that's in gym experiences or whether that's in app experiences. Like I don't know where the fitness scene is going to be in 10 years' time, but I feel like we are agile enough to move with it, like we said, and maybe even pave the way in some respects. Um, and I'm flipping excited to be on that journey. I'm in a very privileged position that we've been able to build something that's quote unquote successful, and has some legs. And I'd love it to be in. I mean, it might happen sooner than 10 years, but in multiple countries around the world. So it's one of those destinations where if you fly to South Africa, there's a gym there. I think that's the coolest thing, going from this tiny little, I guess, farm hut in a site in Harpenden to having kind of global reach is a pretty cool thought. Um, Even though these things are happening and like we don't necessarily think about how cool it is currently with, someone messages today that they're an Indonesian, they've just joined the program. Like, I never thought that would happen 10 years ago, and here we are.
Yeah. You're doing it, mate. You're doing it.
Slowly but surely, Mass.
And that's a cool place to wrap it up. We'll carry this on again.
Appreciate it, mate. Appreciate your time.
Thanks, mate. Love you.
Cheers, Mass.